Hello everyone, I have a small unboxing for you today. I received this little box from Asia and I'll just take it out of its protective plastic sleeve. I just wanted to show you how it arrives, just in case you want to get a copy for yourself so you know exactly what you're getting. So as you can see, there is a little flap around here and we'll go into that in a moment. The game itself is called MärchenForest. And as some of you may recognize, that is of course a German word and it means fairy tale. I expect a lot of English-speaking people will just call it something like Märchen, maybe. It doesn't really matter. But if you like pronouncing words the way they are pronounced in their original language, then it's quite easy really to get the hang of it. German is not that difficult. And you simply use the word mare, just like in English, M-A-R-E, a female horse, a mare, you use that, mare, and then add on a very soft sounding shen, and that's the word, Märchen. And the emphasis is on the first syllable, so if we pull it all together, it's Märchen. Okay? Now the sleeve here details, as you can see at the top there, that there is a little figurine included, and otherwise it's the usual publication details, legal stuff, etc. Now as you can see from the title there, at the bottom is the ratings icon, and that is 12 plus, the Chinese rating symbol. So what I've got here is the Asian edition. There is also a Japanese edition. Both of them are multi-language and include a variety of Asian languages as well as English. I opted for the Switch version because I think this game may be well suited to handheld, I'm hoping. So let's open up the box. And that's why I said it's a small unboxing, because there's literally just the game and a box with a figurine inside. So here's the Switch game, and I'll get that out of the cellophane so we get rid of the reflection. So here we have the game. There's literally just the cartridge inside. No insert, no nothing. So before I open up the box with the figurine, let's just quickly talk about the game. I tried to find out what I could. It's obviously not that well covered in the press, being basically a tiny indie game, so it hasn't had a lot of attention so far. But I was fortunate enough to find an interview with the developer. The developer is a sole developer, just one person in Japan doing everything on the game. This is his debut project. It sort of grew over the years, and that might explain a bit the unusual structure of the game. So the developer, his company name is PrimaryOrbit, and the publisher is called Clouded Leopard, and that's the name you see bottom left here. I don't know if that's readable, I can't stretch any further. Again, a name that is quite new to me. The release date for the game was 28th of January. I will put a link to the interview in the description below, so you can read up for yourself. If you're interested in the game, I do recommend reading the interview. It really is quite fascinating, certainly the first half of it. So MärchenForest, Mylne and the Forest Gift is called by the developer himself an adventure RPG. For me, every RPG should be an adventure, so yeah, that doesn't really tell me an awful lot. It is set, he says, in a full 3D fantasy world where you play a girl named Mylne, obviously, an apothecary who lives in a small forest and aims to become a full-fledged doctor. The story consists of 2 parts. The first part focuses on her trying to become a doctor by gathering medicinal ingredients and also solving the problems of the people who live in the forest. Now, you may be getting some little shades of atelier here, and you would be right. The developer acknowledges the inspiration and influence in terms of theme and ambience of the game, not necessarily in gameplay. Then in the second part, there is a complete switch, because Mylne searches for her missing mother and goes underground into ruins below the forest. And the gameplay changes into a dungeon crawling RPG. I believe it also has some roguelike elements, so just be aware of that if you don't like that sort of thing. I believe it's not too punishing, but there's certainly, from what I've heard, a bit of repetitive grinding involved, as there is in practically every JRPG. I expect that, really. So if people complain about a bit of grinding, to me that doesn't make sense, because JRPGs are all about putting in the effort, leveling up, getting the skills and moving on. Initially the game, I think, was only those 2 parts, but then the developer released a sort of add-on, which I think is now the 3rd part of the story in the game as we have it on PC and consoles. The game is not very long. You could call it a smaller RPG. I've heard a figure of around 12 hours for completion. Now, the other interesting aspect of the game is that it was initially developed as a mobile game for smartphones. Shock horror, I know. However, the developer says that his concept was to replicate a console game on a smartphone. And he was hoping that by playing the game, people would be encouraged to maybe put down their smartphone and return to their older consoles and play some of those older games again. So that's quite nice, really. As I mentioned, it is very much a sole person, tiny indie effort. Accordingly, he obviously didn't have a lot of resources to put into the game, so voice acting and translations were provided for free by volunteers. Background textures he had to use what Unity had to offer. So yes, accordingly we should temper our expectations, I think. That would only be fair. So that is what I know about the game and what got my interest. What I'll do now is I'll just pop the cartridge into my Switch and we'll unbox the figurine while the game loads. So I've eased up the cardboard box a bit so I can get the figurine out. You can see it's all very, what I would call utilitarian. You know, there's no pretense at anything very special. It's just a white cardboard box. So as you can see, there is a bit of putting together involved with a few bits and pieces. So I'll try to do that now. Put her on her base. So here's the figurine of Mylne. It's taken me over 15 minutes to try and get her on the base, and I have to say my report is not favourable. I'll just try and hold her up to the camera so you can see her a bit more in detail. And I don't know if you can see the problem here with the foot being not properly inserted in the base. The figurine itself looks quite nice. It has a lot of detail on it. It has very subtle colour shadings. It does not look like a cheap figure, which is what you might expect. I'm not sure about the material. It doesn't feel like plastic. It could be PVC, I suppose. And I've had this problem recently with several figurines, both cheap and expensive ones, that the cutout holes in the base and the little pegs on the underside of the feet that are supposed to go in, that they are not cut out accurately enough. In this case, they are not deep enough. They're quite shallow, so you can't push the foot pegs in enough. So she's sort of half floating on there, and she's not totally secure. There's also a little plastic stand provided, a clear acrylic one at the back, which really doesn't fit properly at all. The angle is all wrong and it doesn't really do anything. So I'm a wee bit disappointed about that. Poodlepa will probably have to take a look at it and see if he can do anything with his tools, but this is also tiny. It's really difficult, you know. We may have to glue her on just to make sure she's firmly set on there. That's a bit disappointing, but I suppose if you really want the figurine and you're prepared to spend a little bit of work on getting her to be set up properly on the base, then it might be worth it. The box itself, I think, is nice. It would look good displayed on a shelf. Let's have a look now at the game itself. And it's taking a while to load. This is the very beginning of MärchenForest. I had only about half an hour with the game last night, which is barely enough for a very, very early impression. However, I feel there are a few things that struck me straight away that I wanted to let you know about, because I think it's important in case you are considering a purchase. Here is the all-important language selection, and it works just fine. The loading screens are ever present, and I'm showing them, although I'm cutting them short for you guys. You need to be aware of that. If that is something that annoys you a lot, then you might want to include that in your deliberations. Straight away, as we enter the game's world, you notice that the graphics are not of the highest resolution and quality. It reminds me a bit of a rather nice PS2 game or a well-made Nintendo DS or 3DS game. I did mention in my unboxing video the constraints the developer worked under in terms of resources, so obviously that's a major factor. Here we see Mylne for the first time, and you notice straight away that her character model is very nicely done. In fact, the developer has probably done a very smart thing in focusing his efforts on Mylne's character, how it's portrayed with beautiful detail. Here you see a little reference to Atelier games. Most Atelier heroines do mess up the first time. Here we are introduced to Grandpa, who will teach Mylne alchemy. And here we can see straight away with Grandpa that the other character models have not received as detailed attention as Mylne. This, by the way, is Mylne's signature hand movement, and you will see it a lot in the game. I'm not sure at this stage whether things like the loading screens are particularly bad on the Switch. I will be able to compare it with the PS4. Galaxarth will provide the tutorials, and everything is explained in detail. And yes, we have got the hint. Here's the control scheme. It's very straightforward. So finally we're allowed outside and to explore. A note on the music: it hasn't varied much from what I've played, and I'm going to use a technical term. It's from the plinkety-plonk genre. Once again, I refer to that in my unboxing. It goes back to the lack of resources at the developer's disposal. The music is perfectly charming and quite suitable for the atmosphere of the game. It's just that after a certain while I grew pretty tired of it and just switched it down. The world is populated by very quirky, endearing characters, plants and items. It's probably one of the delights exploring it, and I'll show you a little bit in the course of this video. The dialogue has a lot of gentle humour, and I think the translation is actually really well done. So here's the save point, conveniently placed, and we can proceed now with making the potion. And Mylne has advanced to fledgling apothecary, and we've entered the intermediate stage. So this is basically the game flow. You advance and sort of level up your apothecary status by finding ingredients, talking to inhabitants, taking on their requests, often having to talk to them not just once or twice, but 3 or 4 times until they give up a hint or give you an item. We meet the mysterious bard, who doesn't have much to contribute, except for one hint. And Mr. Snake is a very entertaining character. I feel that this game would be really suitable for parents playing it with their children, at least the first part of the game. And yes, Mylne is definitely very, very cute. And here you see that by giving Mr. Squirrel the potion and making him well again, we open up that area for exploration. The one character model I'm having a problem with is the scholar. He just doesn't look quite right to me. And there's a restaurant somewhere in this forest. Not that it matters to me, I'm just a plant.
Adults always try to buy kids off with sweets. Personally, I'll take whatever they give me. Why not?
Mylne strikes up a friendship with Paulie the penguin. To boost his confidence, she becomes his personal coach. This leads to a mini-game of sorts to develop their relationship, and it's penguin training. And it's not
terribly exciting, but you clearly have to do it. And another mini-game is the quiz with Mr. Mushroom, the mushroom sprite, and I'm not showing any significant spoilers, but look away if you don't want to see anything to do with the quiz. Well, you do get a very useful item from the quiz. Here's a quick look at the options menu. You've got your inventory, your equipment, not much there yet, but your stats. And the options have an interesting difficulty setting. As you can see, you can switch between easy and hard. There's only one setting for each. While that may not be significant at this stage, I would anticipate it might be useful later on in the dungeon crawling. So we're finally ready to do the second apothecary stage, and Grandpa stirs the cauldron again, and we have a dream potion. I dare say MärchenForest has so far probably looked overly simple to you. It certainly does to me. It's like a simple mix of a bit of point and click with a bit of a life sim, a bit of crafting. However, I am expecting that in the second part the complexity will increase by quite a bit. I am very much looking forward to that. It will probably be more my cup of tea rather than this first part. And I already have my question in mind about how the two parts are connected and whether the first part truly contributes something significant to the game overall. I hope that's given you an idea about this particular edition of MärchenForest, Mylne and the Forest Gift. If you're interested, it's available from Asia. I got it from PlayAsia, and while the Asian editions, both PS4 and Switch, are sold out, I saw that the Japan region edition is still available for both platforms, Switch and PS4, listed also with English language option. But I need to comment that I think the price is on the very, very high side for an edition offering not that much really. So it's a difficult recommend. If I like the game, I will let you know, and it'll probably be worth just getting maybe the standard edition. In closing, I'd have to say Mylne is very, very cute. I think you'll agree. Thank you very much for watching. As always, please keep well. I'm Food for Dogs. Bye-bye.